Hi, everyone. I'm James Protin. I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for the podcast.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Candelore, owner of Candelere's Barking Beauties, where our salon is your salon. We have 5 convenient locations, no appointment needed. All breeds welcome. Any size dog. We are open Tuesday through Saturday from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. We have 5 convenient locations: Elizabeth, White Oak, Finleyville, Monongahela, and Irwin. Love to have you visit us.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. We have a guest that I've been looking forward to for a while now, my friend Eric McKenna. Eric's a podcaster. He's a photographer, a custom guitar maker, a realtor, a little bit of everything, a Renaissance man, so to speak. So listen, dude, brother, I've been looking forward to this, man. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite.
Hey, listen, it's a when I started doing this, I started looking around, Googling podcasts, local podcasts. Yours came up, and so I reached out to you on social media because you've been doing it a while and you're doing it right. You know, you're not doing anything that's not you. It's real, it's authentic, and I love that. That's what I'm all about.
I appreciate that. That's the one compliment that anybody says that I really take to heart. Like, we're doing this, number one, to have fun.
Yeah.
But to be purely authentic and to have real conversations, with no other bent to it.
Yeah, that's very cool. And you got a great story. And when we started this show, it was about storytelling, right? It was just
100%.
There's so many cool people doing really, really cool things just right around here. You don't need to go out to, nationally or anything like that. We have some really, really amazing people here. And when I read your story and I reread it on your website, there's a quote you put in there that you said that really struck me, right? And it's when you said, even when I was too young to understand why rock and roll records repeatedly played as a young child encouraged a strong desire to do things my way, right? I mean, to me, that's huge.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if I understood it at the time.
Right.
But it seemed like I was gravitating toward music that was very independent in nature, like had themes in it where, screw the world, F this, do your own thing. You can do things. Don't take no for an answer.
Right.
And I think that landed well with me, James, because I had a little bit of timidity in me as a kid. So this was kind of like an alter ego thing. This music was maybe showing me another way, maybe help me get out of some of that timidity.
Sure. Help you step outside.
Early, as a young person, I think so.
Yeah, and music, it's amazing how music drives us and guides us to different places. I'm a child of the 60s, right? The Woodstock generation, so we always had music around the house. Yeah, well, listen, and it was funny because my dad was 7 or 8 years older than my mother, right? So, and he was a jazz guy, right? So we always had Miles Davis and Coltrane and Brubeck and all that stuff was always around the house. And then there's my mother, who's this little hippie chick, right? And she's literally Woodstock, right? So you mix that in with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Grateful Dead and all these things. So I had a very eclectic upbringing musically. You know what I mean? And
for sure.
I have no musical talent whatsoever. I've never played an instrument, but I appreciate music, and to this day I do because of that. And I relate a lot of life experience to that.
Yeah, music is when I say it's everything to me, I know it's kind of a catchphrase, a cliche, but anything good that ever happened to me in my life, usually if you wind it back, it usually started with some kind of song, event, band, friendship, born out of a love of music. It's always music relate. I can relate to some kind of musical start of something good.
Yeah, right. I mean, to this day, I mean, in my 60s, I'll be driving in the car and a song will come on the radio and it'll take me back to like 1972. And I have a vivid memory of something
that's the beauty of
I
music.
was doing when I heard that song.
That's the beauty of music, man. I think, and I don't think we should ever analyze it or overanalyze it. Like, it's just music makes you feel a certain way, and that's enough validation.
Right.
We spend so much time as humans analyzing stuff to death, musical genres and tastes and loyalties to bands.
Sure.
And we don't like things we don't like because we just are supposed to. You know, it's like,
yeah, it's exactly
in the end, music makes you feel a certain way.
Right.
And like a relationship, new love or whatever moments in your life that emit a reaction, they're valid in their own way. I think humans have a tendency to overanalyze and beat it to death and just accept it. It's part of the experience.
And I think it helps you to not overthink and to start overfeel, right? Instead of thinking your way through life. It's
a good way of putting it.
Feel your way through life.
It's a good way of putting it.
Music helps you to get in touch with that feeling.
Yeah, I think so. And I maybe I only gathered that little nugget of wisdom later in my life. Maybe I should have led more by feeling sometimes and not overanalyzing and not being.
We all go there.
But if you haven't learned anything when you get older, at least you can gain a little wisdom.
It's a true story.
A little wisdom.
True story. I think I probably screwed up 99% of the stuff that I tried until I turned 40. And it was like, and including marriage, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just fumbled and bumbled and stumbled.
I don't think you're alone.
Stuff and
I think that's pretty
I'm finding that out.
Standard. Yeah. It's just getting people that are willing to admit it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I often kind of look back and you've had, and we'll get into it a little bit as we go forward, but you've had several like moments in your life, right? In certain years, the things that happened, tragic things, positive things, and I'm the same way. And when I sit, sometimes I carried that with me for a long time.
Right.
And it really slowed me down. Divorce in particular, that was a major deal for me, right?
Yeah.
It just nearly killed me. But I carried that thing for a long time, long after I actually should have, right?
Yeah.
So, some of the things that you've had on your journey, we've all had those twists and turns. Did you have trouble putting it down? How long did it take you? Was there a moment that you said, okay, enough of this, I'm done, and walked away?
Yeah, so I had a bit of that. I like the word serendipity because a lot of things in my life tended to just kind of work out. I fell in a lot of mud puddles in my life, James. It came out smelling all right.
I hear you.
I did lose my brother in '96, my only sibling, lost him to drugs. It was absolutely not only horrific, but it just didn't make any sense to me. At the same time, I was getting married to my first wife and leaving my hometown. A lot of seismic changes in that year.
Right.
Started a new job. But things were generally okay, but I wasn't bewildered or delusioned at all, but it was a lot to handle, a lot on my plate. I went on a vacation in 1997, about a year or two later, and I was sitting at a bar, a tiki bar, overlooking the ocean. My wife decided to go up to the room, probably because she might have had a couple cocktails and she was done.
That's okay.
I was going to hang around for a little longer, And I ran into a couple sitting at this tiki bar, jumped there from New York City. He was a jeweler. And we started our conversation because I was a small-time watch enthusiast, and I'm looking at this guy's got an unbelievable, beautiful Rolex presidential watch. And I happened to say, that's a beautiful watch. We started talking. He's a jeweler from New York City. Okay. And I sat and talked to this husband and wife. They were considerably older than I. I talked to them for 2 hours. And one thing he said to me in this conversation was, he said to me, you need to marry your passion with your vocation. Because I was telling him about my life a little bit and sharing, and he says, you marry your passion with your vocation. If you can find a way to do that, that's the closest thing to bliss in this world you will ever find.
That's profound,
Love
man.
what you do.
That's huge.
And I looked at him, I'm like, I don't even know what I dig. He goes, oh, what do you like? I love music. Do something in music. And he goes, what have you always wanted to do you've never done? And I looked at him and I said, I think play guitar. I love music so much. I love guitar-driven rock and roll so much. It gives me a feeling like nothing else does, and I can't even articulate it. But I've noodled with it, but I've never taken it serious. He says, go home, get a guitar, and take off.
Jump in.
And I went home. I bought a guitar off of Hollywood Music in the McKees Rocks. Called my best friend who I really wasn't seeing very often anymore. I said, hey, I want to rekindle the friendship. I'll take the blame for that, right?
Okay.
But I need you to teach me guitar. And he never doubted you know, that I had a desire to do it, and I went literally crazy. I practiced like, I mean, I literally just, you know, played every day 24/7, and I willed myself to overcome the mechanics of that, and I learned how to play guitar at like 36 years old.
That's no small feat.
You know?
I mean, that's
because I had a full-time gig and the rest of it, but it was like I really something inside me was like, wow, it's resonating. I'm now being able to create the music that I love. And so that led to buying guitars, you know, online, this new thing, this interwebs thing that was growing, right? I was buying guitars, and I ended up buying a couple. I was trying to find the one that fits me, right? Guitarists always looking for the right one. So I buy a couple different versions, and I had one that kind of resonated with me, the Gibson, but the other ones I had to get rid of. And I'm like, oh shit, the bill's gonna come. My wife's gonna see this credit card bill, a couple $1,000s. I need to find a way to get rid of these things, like quick. So I put them on this thing called eBay. I bought a little 1 pixel 1 megabyte or one megapixel camera. Took the photos, put it on eBay, and then they both sold for a ridiculous profit. Nice. It didn't take long to figure out that like there's something to this, right?
This is a good deal.
And I had a good gig. I worked at PageNet. I kept getting promoted. I was in corporate sales, but the industry was dying.
Right. Yeah,
paging was dying. And I just I took that idea of buying and selling guitars, the commerce end of it, which I loved, and I looked at the circumstance. I looked at the money I was making. I looked at the fact that PageNet was kind of going under. I could see the writing on the wall. I figured, I'm young enough to make a mistake.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
I have enough confidence. I can sell anything. I can sell Snow the Eskimos. I'm just built that way. If it doesn't work, I'll figure it out. Okay. So I drove home one day. What am I going to call this thing? It's on eBay. I was just Eric McKenna guitars. That was my thing.
Yeah.
I'm driving home one day, and I was just rainstorm, and I still kind of like messed up about my brother, and he used to like this term Boogie Street. Like he'd always make this goofy saying or something. Right. And it basically was a song by Leonard Cohen, the folk singer.
Okay.
In the early 70s.
Sure.
And I'm like, Boogie Street. I'm like, that's kind of strange. I said, but you know what? Do it. I went home. I got the domain, started it, changed my username. The rest was kind of history. I left corporate America in 99. And, I just
didn't look back.
Never looked back. Once I got that taste of entrepreneurship and being able to really not be beholden to anybody, because I'm kind of unmanageable. Ask any manager I've had. I'm not. I don't play well with others often, so it just suited me.
Sure.
And we had some luck, and but again, James, it was like serendipity. I'm not the most spiritual person, but I like to think my brother had looking down on me to some degree, and help me find a way to deal with some grief and turn some negativity into some positivity.
Well, it helped you process what went down. And obviously, I mean, you guys were close, because it impacted you for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, you carry it. Mm-hmm. You still carry him with you. It's on that T-shirt. He's right there with you, all the time. And that's amazing. It's some things are just meant to be.
I think so.
I'm more of a spiritual guy than religious. But I believe that everything happens for a reason. I'm not a big coincidence
I would like
guy,
to hope so. Anyways, so this is either one big practical joke or is there a meaning to all this? I don't know.
Well, and I think again, getting back to overanalyzing, I think we put way too much emphasis on trying to find purpose or meaning instead of just going out and living and letting it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Feel your way through it.
Sure.
Let it happen.
I think so.
And you got to follow. Sometimes you got to follow your heart. And so you did Boogie Street Guitars. Now you actually design custom guitars.
So it's a little bit more to it there. I was just buying and selling for the first couple of years. I would literally just search the globe, go to guitar shows, just immerse myself in the business. I wanted to learn the instruments, learn the business, gain contacts, and that could have been enough for me. I could have just been a horse trader. I just could have been, the guitar guy and just buying and finding pieces for people, and a lot of revenue involved in that. I got divorced in 2002, but probably the most amicable divorce you'll ever want to meet. I mean, my first wife and I, and the mother of my two children.
Good for you. That doesn't happen.
Remain the best of friends to this day, and
awesome.
The kids were raised in as much harmony as a divorce circumstance can yield. So, in that regard, it's very blessed. But I decided in the early 2000s, like, hey, I think I know what kids want to play. I think I know what young kids want to play. If a guitar looked like that and maybe sounded this way and had these pickups and these tuners and these woods, I think a kid would dig that. Now, I don't know where this delusion came from because I wasn't a kid myself.
Right.
I just got a feel, though, based upon looking at what bands were current, all the trends and vibes.
Sure.
So I said, okay, I want to design guitars, and if they're not my own designs, I want to take the designs of famous manufacturers, and I want to convince them to let me put my spin on it.
Okay.
So I went to Gibson, I went to Fender, went to Paul Reed Smith, went to Peavey, and continually got the doors slammed in my face. Some doors were slammed in my face rudely.
Okay.
Won't mention any names in Nashville, Tennessee. And some were very kind, but like they didn't need me. They had art in their mind. They had artist relations departments. They had design departments. They didn't need me.
Sure.
So my last chance, man, was the company I really wasn't that fond of. I didn't or even think much of at that time, which was Washburn Guitars out of Chicago.
Okay.
And I put the plan together, and it just happened that I had the audacity, not even to call or send a letter. I actually drove there.
Just showed up.
Desperation. I just showed up at U.S. Music, which was the parent company of Washburn Guitars. Didn't know anybody. Just walked in the door, and I just basically asked to speak to the product manager. I figured I'd start there because no one's going to give me the president.
Right.
And that led me to a conversation. And the president of the company, Mr. Rudy Schlocker, happened to be there that day. He happened to be in a good mood. He took my audience. I sat down, and I really told him that I had presented this to other manufacturers. I was honest with him, and I said, hey, I didn't say that he was my last choice.
Last hope.
But I said, I really had this out, and it's not landing well with other manufacturers. And I really think that I have something in this head of mine telling me that these type of aesthetics is going to work, man. It's going to make money.
Right.
And he bought into it, and that led to introducing me to their artists, their endorsed artists, guitar players. And they weren't playing, the artists they signed weren't playing the instruments. Like they would sign them into a contract, and the artist would just not play the instrument because he didn't like the instrument, right? And he said, if you can interface with these couple and get them to play our guitars, we'll do some more business. So that led to, doing some stuff with Roger Waters, of Pink Floyd, Dimebag Darrell, which was in the metal genre. Right. And once I started doing that, I just was completely addicted. When it was, I was starstruck a little bit too, but getting to have a little bit of a say, or getting to have my ideas taken seriously, and then created in Chicago with these craftsmen, and then seeing the guitars up on stage.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty
cool.
That was
Plus you're making
for
money
a
on
rock and roll nut like me. That was probably that whole thing was melding together.
Right.
So that just led to designing guitars and then partnering up with Washburn's artists. And Washburn was so good to me that I made a deal that if I told Rudy, I said, you give me this opportunity that I will sign exclusivity with you, and I won't take on any other manufacturers if you open your doors to me and let me do all this great stuff.
Right. That's
kind of what happened. Long and the short of it, it just really was, that led to
just clicked.
And the big one for me was in 2006, Paul Stanley of Kiss. Washburn made a play to bring him back in the stable, me being probably one of the biggest Paul Stanley fans imaginable. And that just set off another 8-year run of just fantastic
That's pretty
stuff.
cool. And you developed a friendship
lucky
with him, your relationship.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, we did we took a lot of designs together. Most worked, some didn't.
Right.
But we really, for me, it was amazing because you meet your childhood hero, and he is exactly as you hoped he would be. Because you hear stories about don't
really
meet your
cool.
hero because they might disappoint you.
Right.
He was the furthest thing from it. So there was a lot of surreal moments there, just understanding that it's the caller ID. It was 2000, so the technology on the phones were a little different. But the caller ID would say Paul Stanley, or an email would pop up on my inbox and Outlook. It'd be like Paul Stanley. I'm like,
that's surreal. It has to be.
I had to take little screenshots at first. But then after a while, it just became the specialness became old hat because it was almost like a weekly thing. I had all this stuff going on. I never took it for granted, but it did become part of of what we were doing.
Sure.
So never take it for granted, but it was just that was that was that was a moment where you talk about moments. That was a moment. Getting on my first call with him. Sitting down in meetings and looking across the table, and there's Paul Stanley and there's me. and we're talking about
Yes.
doing guitars, and I'm able, and at that point, I'm able to work with him as a business associate,
Sure.
you know,
Yep.
just cool stuff. Like that's just, if nothing else ever happens to me in my life, or I'm good. I mean, like,
Yeah.
that part of my life was something that most people don't get a chance. And I realized I was very, very fortunate, lucky, serendipity, whatever it is. I was at the right place, the right time, and I had the courage to take the chance.
But you know what? Listen,
and that's all I think anyone can try.
a lot of it's serendipity. I get that, and you know, success in any endeavor involves a lot of luck, right?
Yeah.
But listen, for you to get in a car and drive to Chicago
Mhm.
unannounced, no, you know, business isn't done that way.
Desperation.
You know, the fact
So
exactly,
that's what that was.
But that was a
Or
bold move.
insanity.
Yeah, well, you know, you can call it a lot of things, but you know, it was a bold move.
I
right?
felt, and I wasn't doing it out of financial. That's what made it so great. I wasn't doing it out of financial desperation,
Right.
because what I was doing was very profitable. But this was something I believed that I could do.
Right. So it
And
was in your heart.
and I was getting pissed off because I was being rejected by other manufacturers. And there's that thing, like I'm stubborn. Like if you tell me I can't do something, but you don't give me a good reason why,
right.
I'm going to find a way to try it. You know?
Absolutely.
And that's what happened. Is and I would like to think Rudy, to his credit, you know, heard this story and realized how this kid drove all the way from Pittsburgh, you know, on this idea. At least I'm gonna give him a shot.
Well, you're exactly
and it
right.
just, you know,
You're
knock on
exactly
wood,
right.
it just
A
took
good
off.
businessman is going to do that because, see, if that was me, I'd say, like you said, this kid drove here from Pittsburgh
Yeah.
on a wing and a prayer, so to
Yeah.
speak, you know, with an idea. I'm at least going to sit down and see what he has to say.
Yeah,
Right?
and that's exactly what he did, and it was the right move for all involved. They were doing well, but they were not considered to be in the same league at the time.
Sure.
I don't think, with Fender and Gibson and Paul
Right.
Reed Smith and some of the
Yeah.
bigger firms. And then, but what we did over those first 5 years is elevate that brand, and we weren't solely responsible for that, but we certainly were a big part of it.
You're a big part of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that what we did for the brand in that period of time was, you know, we hung our hat on it. And we made, I mean, James, you know, I haven't been in the business for 8 years. We closed Boogie Street in 2014, but our brand is emboldened on the backs of those headstocks on thousands and thousands of guitars that are out in the ether.
Right.
And
right.
guitars are a collectible thing. People collect them, they trade them, they sell them, they make their way all over the world because we ship them all over the world. So our little legacy of what we did is out there in the guitar ether, and it's so cool just to hear people calling me, "Hey, can you tell me about this model?" And then I do my best to go back and research. Hey, we did this in 2006. There's a limited run of 200 or a limited run of 50, yada yada yada. But there's a little story attached to it all, and that's kind of that little bit of tapestry of that era has been a good part of my life as I've gotten older.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And that's a legacy, right? That's a legacy.
It
It's
is.
Gonna be out there.
It
It's
is.
Not going
Yeah,
away. It's not going to go
I
anywhere.
wasn't comfortable with that word initially, but I think now, yeah, I mean, that's what it's become.
As you keep going down
know?
your road, you know, traveling the journey and whatever you want to call it. I mean, that word starts popping up more, right? You
Yeah.
know, because you start to see.
Because we're getting old.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. You know, you start to see the end. It's over there. You know, the light. You know, the other side of the tunnel's right there. So it's like
Looks like a long road ahead of me,
I
James.
hope.
Long road, man.
I hope. One of my grandsons asked me last night if I was going to live to be 100, and I said, well,
Damn straight.
let's hope. You know, but it's but that word pops up more and more. You know, because you start to think about, you know, is the world going to be even a little bit better because of what I did when I was here?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, in the end, I just want to. In the end, it sounds very hokey, but this is really what went through my mind often. When I would talk to my clients, my customers, when they'd get the guitar, we put a show on, man. We had a custom case. We had all the case candy, the accoutrements, the T-shirts. We did everything to make that presentation. When they open up that box and open that case up, it's like, whoa. So we did everything we could to give them a really good experience. We used to call it the Boogie Street experience. But I would then realize, and I'm glad that I was able to recognize this, you know, because sometimes with youth, you know, you miss things.
Absolutely.
I didn't miss the amazing feeling of knowing that person who purchased that $2,000 instrument from me is like smiling right now. They're at home
Right.
like losing their stuff.
Exactly. You're
That
exactly
would in turn
right.
give me a lot of happiness.
Yeah,
And I
there
can
you
look
go.
back at that now and saying, hey, we made a lot of money. You know, we lost a lot of money, but we did a lot of good stuff and made people smile. I made a lot of people, not just me, but my team. We made a lot of people smile over those years, and in turn
That's good stuff.
we did a lot of smiling.
See, you can do that.
know?
Again, remember the conversation you had with that older couple when you were on vacation? You did
Yeah.
that, right? You went back and you did exactly what he told you
I
to
did
do,
exactly.
man. And that's like,
I married my vocation with my
That's
passion.
exactly
and,
right.
And again, I mean, I tell my son that all the time. I said, it'd be amazing if you could marry, you know, your passion with your vocation. It may not happen because it's a very
Right.
narrow opportunity.
sure.
But if it does happen, it is everything that gentleman, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't remember his name. I don't remember, you know, I wish I did, because it wasn't monumental until, you know, years later when the
Sure.
business started.
Sure.
If I had known it was going to be such a monumental life, I'd love to be able to reconnect with him if he's still with us, you know.
Listen, I've
Super
had so many of those types of
amazing.
moments that you think in the moment they're just innocuous, right? They're you know, just brush into somebody in a coffee shop or, you know, just on vacation in a
Yeah.
tiki bar, you know,
Yeah.
and you don't realize at that time that years later the significant impact
Well,
they're going to have on your
James,
life.
what's
right?
really cool is like, I know that we were at a place called I don't even think it's in business anymore, but it was in Cancun, the Jack Tar Resort. And my wife, on her way back to the hotel room, snapped a photo of me sitting at this tiki bar by myself, and the ocean's behind me.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there like this. So that would have been like maybe 20 minutes to an hour before this couple showed up.
Yeah.
So I have a
Yeah.
photograph of the moment.
right?
Just not the moment.
The moment.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
So, but I have some moment, you know, some, I don't know, like I have some trinket of that moment. I just don't have
Yeah.
I wish I
Yeah.
had their names, because it was really, the conversation was pretty unvarnished, because I
right.
probably was, you know, about 6 or 7 beers down.
There you go.
And I was definitely, you know, I was wearing some grief probably still from my brother and some other
Right.
things too. He could tell something wasn't right.
Mhm.
And he was just a good conversationalist. He got in there and started asking me
just a
some
good
questions
guy,
in
right.
a very non-offensive way, and I must have just gave it all up. And after that conversation, he was able to have a heart-to-heart with me. So sometimes I think people enter your life at the right time.
Yep.
You know,
When they're
sometimes-
supposed to.
Yeah.
When they're
yeah.
supposed
They
to.
say when what is it? The teacher will arrive when the student is ready.
That's exactly
You know,
right.
and there's a
Yeah.
lot of credence to that.
There is, yeah, absolutely. And I know that when whenever I've been in need, you know, somebody has always showed up.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
the great
there's
thing about life.
been a mentor or somebody that has showed up.
Yeah,
you know?
you just have to be willing to be accepting of it.
Yeah.
To accept it in, you know.
That's exactly right. Open heart is more than an open mind, right? It's
Amen.
more important, you know,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you gotta, you know, and you have to accept where you are, and you did in that moment.
Mhm.
You know, you had the grief from your brother. You're doing all these things, and you got all this stuff going on. You had that moment of acceptance, and then this couple shows up, and that's
Pretty
how
much.
it works. That's how
Yeah,
it works, right?
Pretty much, man, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's fascinating stuff. So, I know I got to tell you too, the Paul Stanley, the Kiss thing. I got a buddy Rory who's a gigantic Kiss fan, right? And somebody he just put on social media the other day. Somebody gave him a drumstick that Peter Criss used in a
right on.
concert, right? So
Right
he's
on.
he's pretty excited. So Boogie Street. You put that away. You put that back in the drawer, and you move in, and then all of a sudden you're a realtor. You decide what brought real estate into your mind? Where'd that come from?
I knew Boogie Street around 2012-ish. I knew it was about time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my designs weren't landing well with the kids. I think I had lost after a second divorce. I kind of took it on the chin financially, which, you know, that's not a unique story.
No, that happens.
You
I
know?
did as well. We've
Yeah,
all been there.
Not a unique story, but at the time, you know, it's magnified, right?
Yep.
I knew I had to find the next thing. I was
Mm-hmm.
I was too young to retire, and I also was not financially set enough to retire. Even
Sure.
even trying to live a meager existence, I could not have pulled that
Right,
off.
right.
I needed to find a way to do something. I'm unmanageable. I just, you know, I've been told that too many times. I don't play well nice with others, so I got to find something that gives me an entrepreneurship bent,
Mm-hmm.
but has some kind of. I don't want to recreate the wheel, because when I started
Right.
Boogie Street, I didn't have like any other companies to look to as to, hey, do it like this or do it like this, because
Sure.
the internet was young. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I didn't have anybody to tell me. So this time I wanted something that had a cookie cutter kind of system.
Sure.
But I wanted something that gave me the freedom. No one's managing me. I'm out on my own. Real estate was the perfect thing. I got very, very fortunate that landed in my lap. It just suited me.
Nice.
And again, midlife change, right? You gotta
sure.
Can you teach an old guy new tricks, right? An old dog new tricks.
Oh yeah.
But it just, like I said, a lot of times in my life I fall into a mud puddle and I just come out smelling like a rose, and I just don't know how that happened. But
you're doing something
it
right.
Just suited me.
You're doing something right.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit before the show. It's about by that time all that happened, I knew that I did not want to. There were moments throughout the guitar journey, James, where I felt like we were trying to be everything to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The company, and then because I was the face of the company that I was. And when it was over with, I was able to breathe. Like, wait a second, let me find out who the hell I am. Let's really embrace who I am.
There you go. And at this point, you're nudging 50. You're right around 50 years old. So it's like,
I was probably like 48.
Yeah.
So
you're approaching like the milestone.
I think so.
You know what I mean? Because 50's the one that got my attention.
Yeah, it got my attention. At that time, I think I would have been 48, and I just knew that if I was going to do anything next time, and I already had a little bit of experience marketing on social and the internet, because I had been marketing on the web since '98.
Sure.
Right. So, I mean, all that stuff was, and again, that it was easier for me to go out, and I wasn't camera shy. I could go out there and market real estate. I could put myself out there to brand myself enough to get some initial clients and start. So that wasn't a hamper to me. Those things were just natural. So so real estate did not. The learning curve was the procedural stuff, but the marketing thing and all that I felt very comfortable with. So it was a really, really good fit.
Good. And so you spent some time in radio then, right?
I did, yes. I was approached by Mark Peterson, the gentleman who owns Beaver County Radio, in 2016. He had heard me read some commercials on 93.7 The Fan and some other, WJS, just real estate commercials that I had bought. And I did my own reads, and he heard the voice.
You have a good radio voice.
I
mean,
you
got
where
that voice,
comes
right?
from, though. I'm just not trained. So he heard it and said, "Hey, would you ever think of doing your own radio show? I have a smaller station. It's in Beaver County, but we service all Beaver County." And I'm like, "Well, you didn't have to ask me more than once." I'm like,
"Right,
ask me to have my own radio show. You don't have to ask me more than once." So that led to the Eric McKenna show on Beaver County Radio from '96 through the end of '99.
Okay.
I loved it, but I started the podcast. Actually, I had this crazy idea to start a podcast in 2019.
Okay.
And that I did both for 1 year together.
Okay.
It was a lot.
That's a big bite.
So
that's a big bite.
I put right before the pandemic, I put a hiatus on the radio show so I could breathe a little bit.
Sure.
And then recently, Rocco Koza, my good friend,
Rocco's a good guy.
We're doing a show called The Entrepreneur Life. We're actually back on.
You just
Beaver
went
County
back
Radio.
into that.
The opportunity presented itself, and I was like, you know what? I kind of miss it.
Okay.
Radio's cool. Terrestrial radio is a different animal.
Yeah.
But it's like anything else. It's just connecting with people.
Sure.
Which was the initial reason that I liked real estate, and I liked guitars too, because it brought, on my own terms, it brought me in social circumstances.
It brings people together.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but I love radio, and I love maybe it's a nostalgia thing. Like the studio is very archaic. When you go in, you feel like you're back in the 70s.
Is that right?
Yeah, they still have carts in there, and it's just like
nice.
It's cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah, just connecting with people, man. I just love to, I don't know. I don't know how I fell into that. Because the timidity I had as a kid, I look back at that kid now, and I'm like, whoa, man.
There's none of that left. It's gone.
Yeah,
right.
Gone.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's good to me, though.
Well, that's good. You have the people skill, right? And that will take you farther than any education, any degree, anything.
I think so.
If you can read people, if you can communicate, communication's a big deal.
100%.
It's a huge deal.
You really gotta want it though. It's
Absolutely.
Like, it's like, we're getting back to, like I mentioned, the Boogie Street. We were trying to be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
When I became a realtor, I realized right away the brokerage I started out with, and I'm not going to drop names, but fantastic training. I learned a lot, but they weren't big on individuality.
Okay.
You can't wear this, you're not going to sell real estate. You can't drive this color car because you're not going to sell real estate. You can't wear a baseball cap, as your branding, because it's unprofessional. You can't do this, you can't do that. And that, again, I was right back to that. Holy someone's telling me what I can and can't do again. So once I found my way and got associated with brokerages that gave me the ultimate freedom, what I wanted to do,
there you go.
then I could breathe. And I've never, I never looked back. And when I started to really brand my name, figuring, well, I'm associated with this Boogie Street thing. It's no longer around. I want to brand my name. I better be myself 100%. I better put all sides of me out there and make sure that people realize, look, this is who he is. He may not be for you, and that's totally okay.
That's totally okay.
That's totally okay.
Right.
I'm not for everybody. I'm an acquired taste.
None of us are.
But
that's exactly
but ultimately, for the folks that I do resonate with or choose to work with me, they get it.
Right.
There's a loyalty that's undying. That's how I live my life. And so, if we are wired to connect, your experience is going to be good. And if we're not, that's totally fine.
That's
too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And
you
I
go
think,
this way, I'll go my way, and we'll be happy.
That's the maturity of business that I had to, in life, that I had to get all these years later, that, it's okay to be your authentic self. It's okay to just be who you are.
We don't all have to be the same. We don't all have to think the same, feel 100%. The same. Everybody reacts to things differently.
100%. And that's
we don't see it.
We have to be open. And I think there's that's the problem I see with social media, James. It's like an illusion. There's so much of it is an illusion. Great tool.
It is. Yes.
It's a great communications tool.
If it's done right, it's tremendous.
I don't begrudge social media whatsoever. I do begrudge our weakness to just give into it and let it manipulate us.
Right.
And we're all guilty. I have the moments I had to pull myself back, like, whoa, this is not right.
Yeah.
Because it's so damn addicting. But but used as a tool correctly, it's a fascinating business implement. It's
a tremendous marketing tool, and we use it. I mean, we all use it. One of the last places I ever thought social media would have an impact is in the engineering industry, right? Because it's old school. Yeah. Right. We do things. There's always innovative technologies that come on, but the core of engineering is the same as it was in the 1800s. It hasn't changed. You can only go back to the freaking Romans, for God's sake. There are things that the Romans built that still are being in daily use today.
No doubt.
Thousands of years. So it's a very, very low key, very old, very stubborn industry, but the smart companies, the forward thinking companies have really jumped into social media and taken advantage of it, and some of them do it incredibly well.
Yeah, and again, it's a tool. It's humans. It's
great
humans that screw it up.
That's it. Well, it's just like any tool, right? It's just like any tool.
It's how it's going to be used. But I the concept of bringing people together and connecting, whether it was through radio, whether it was through music, and now through the podcast, it's like that's what kind of I live for in this point in my life. It's like it's the conversations.
I see some of the national conversations about podcasting, and one of the topics that I see trending a lot is that podcasting is the new radio. It's going to take the place of radio, and I don't ever see that happening. I think there'll always be a place for radio. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm a big fan of radio, but radio is a lot different now, and it is, I think, slowly being replaced. It isn't going to be an overnight thing, but radio has been marginalized for sure. Yeah. But it serves I think radio also serves a very necessary civil function as well too. So I don't is it going to evaporate? Probably not.
And one of the things, and I don't know if I'm happy about it or not, but it is a subconscious thing. I have my vehicles all on XM radio, satellite radio, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you the last time I used to always every morning, man, I was morning show, right? Bam, there I was. But now, I mean, I think I got worn out by commercials, or
that's the problem.
I think you're right, because
That's
now
the problem.
I just leave it on the satellite radio, and I have my my jazz station, my this, my that, Dave Matthews, Tom Petty, the kind of the stuff that I like, and it's I don't got to worry about that.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that's going on. Like, I don't have the numbers or stats or anything, but you would have to think that satellite has put such a huge dent in terrestrial radio. Now, terrestrial radio will fight back and say, and it does have its place.
Absolutely.
And I enjoy my Saturday shows, and I enjoy the format, but in terms of where that format's going, I honestly don't know. I'm a huge believer in podcasting, but I'm also extremely skeptical about what podcasting will look like, or will there be genres of podcasting? And I don't mean topics. I'm talking about the types of podcasting.
Yes. Yep, I get it. I get it.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I think about that, and it's interesting because it's a platform that could go so many different directions, and a lot of those directions are wrong.
Yeah,
to go off the rails.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm really not clear on that. Like Nick and I, we just we started doing this just to have these kind of conversations, right? Just to tell stories, because we think there's a lot of cool stories out there to tell locally, feet on the ground.
Absolutely.
That people don't know about, right? Boogie Street Guitars. I mean, that's a really cool thing. I've been a music guy my whole life and never heard of that, right? Because I never played an instrument,
right?
But you'd think that I'm a Pittsburgh guy, been around here my entire life, I'd have heard of it.
Yeah, right? Well, it's funny you said that, because I get that a lot. People say, well, I think I might have heard of it, but the reason why we didn't have a local presence was because it was actually completely intentional.
Okay.
I did not want a store. I did not want a walk-in environment. I didn't want to sell intrastate. I didn't want any Pennsylvania sales. So Boogie Street was an interstate sales company only. Yes, because it was, I had so much on my plate to then take the sales tax issue with Pennsylvania and have to deal with all that. And I wasn't in the dodging and weaving. I wanted to play it straight. And that didn't endear us to a lot of Pittsburgh musicians that we weren't selling locally. So I didn't want to have a staff. We were internet only. When I say internet only, we worked out of, we were in Rossland Farms. The first Boogie Street office was 2,800 square feet, and it was just an office locked down. There wasn't a front door. There wasn't, what I mean? So we were internet only. Okay. So people would see these Boogie Street stuff on the web, and they'd see Pittsburgh, but they couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, where's that?
I didn't want to be, I wasn't trying to be obtuse about it or difficult. It's just that it didn't fit my business model. So because to do it locally, you got to do it right. You got to embrace the local, and that's all great. But it's true. I didn't have low end guitars for. Like most musical stores, James, if you go in, you have a lot of folks looking to buy their first guitar for themselves or for their kid.
Right.
I just didn't have that kind of market, and I didn't have the staff around to maybe support that kind of activity. So it just wasn't my bag. So that's why people say, I heard of it, but I didn't know much about it. And I was like, good, we did a good job.
There, you did the right thing.
We did a good job. Yeah,
awesome.
For sure.
That's exactly what you wanted.
Yeah, so we weren't real big in Pittsburgh, but I'm trying to embrace the fact that we were Pittsburgh born.
Sure.
And we had guitars built and designed in Chicago. We had folks in LA that were designing for us, and later Bernie Rico, the late Bernie Rico was building some guitars for us. So we had like Pittsburgh, Chicago, and Los Angeles were kind of like where we were, but it all came, and it was all coordinated out of Pittsburgh.
That's awesome.
We hit away.
Yeah. But now, there's a lot to it. I get that. I get that, because that retail space is tough.
It wasn't my bag. I never really thought. Yeah, I wasn't. I never found any enjoyment out of it, and the web to me was much more exciting. I mean, you had to ship things, but I got real good at shipping things. I figured out that skill set,
Right.
And once I figured out that I can ship guitars all over the world to every point in the world, and this new thing called digital photography started to take off, where the customer could take a picture of them holding the guitar.
Yeah.
With
nice.
a shirt on and with our caps on. And it got to the point where, like, wow, this is pretty cool.
And they're marketing for you. You're selling them a guitar, like, and they're turning
it's a lot easier
than merch, and then
it's a lot easier than helping a kid, for 20 minutes find the right pair of $6 strings,
Yeah.
and then hire somebody to do that. I just,
Right.
it wasn't an effective business model for me.
Yeah.
We
right.
need places like that.
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
not for me.
Absolutely. Just like, it's just like record stores. How many record stores you see around anymore,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because of the internet. So I'm going to North Dakota. Our youngest son's in the Air Force, and he just got stationed, got posted in North Dakota. So I decided to drive out there, take a road trip.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, had some time. So I'm going. I'd never been. It's one of the few states I'd never been to. Right,
Right
I
on.
travel a lot. I'd never been there. I want to see it.
Sure.
So nothing like I thought it was going to be. But that's a story for another day. So I'd only heard of Fargo, North Dakota from that damn movie, right? So
That
I go and I
accent.
see there's a sign, it's Fargo, right? So I'm going, So I get off and I go off the beaten path, and and I'm thinking, okay, I think I may have made a horrible mistake, right? Because it's like, So finally, all of a sudden, boom, there's Fargo, North Dakota. So I park and I just start walking around downtown, and let me tell you, there's a probably about a half a dozen little microbreweries and stuff, and a little coffee shop. And I'm going to this coffee shop because it was morning, and I happen to glance over, and I see it, the sign says Orange Records. So yeah, Orange Records, and it had an awning, over the thing. So I got to check this out. I haven't been in a record store in a long time.
Yeah.
So I go over and I open the door, and a little bell rings, and I walked into 1975.
It's awesome.
I
man.
literally walked into 1975, and I'm
It's
like,
awesome.
holy crap, I'm FaceTiming all my friends. You're not going to believe this place, right? And I'm talking to the owner, and he said, we've been here since 72. We really haven't changed anything. But now all the stuff that they sold new, all the vinyl, 45s, all that stuff, he said it's all vintage now, and it's a whole different type of audience. But this is the way we did it in the 70s.
man.
So it was fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, the younger generations, God bless them. They're going to do so many things in this world way better than we ever could.
Oh, absolutely.
But they are missing the beauty of how they consume their media. They're missing the joy that we had about having a tangible thing, a record album.
Yeah.
The way it smelled, the liner notes,
Unreal.
the scratchy records that played. I mean, there was a tapestry of beauty in ingesting media the way we did,
Absolutely.
which is not around anymore.
No.
That doesn't happen anymore.
It's a
we
shame.
kind of lost it like in the mid
It
80s
is,
with CDs, right? I mean,
it is. It's a shame. Your kids will never experience that other than, I tell my grandkids about it, and they're like,
well, it's not convenient. I get
it's
it.
like,
listen, I'm not out buying new vinyl. I like my downloads, and I like the streaming stuff.
oh
but,
yeah, no,
'cause
it's got its place, right? It's got its place.
But growing up, I wouldn't change it. It was more important for me to carry my albums around school than it was my books.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was everything.
Absolutely.
everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was cool stuff, man. Those were good days. I mean, listen, I would not have wanted to grow up in any other time. I mean,
no.
I remember vividly sitting on a couch with my dad watching Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. Right, I was 9 years old, and I remember it like it was yesterday. No, I have a grandson. My grandson's 9. I was with him. He's here visiting from North Dakota, and I'm like thinking, wow, that's like I was that age.
It's a moment, man.
I remember that stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, all that stuff.
Important moments in history.
And the fact that I survived the 70s is like pretty. I'm still impressed with that because it was the 70s. So enough said there.
But what a great decade! I don't know about socially, but what a great decade for music.
Oh,
it'll never be duplicated.
No, never. I mean, and the thing of it is, we get to experience all that stuff live when it was new, when it happened.
I mean, like I just think for me, I was 10 in '76. I was 10, and some kid brought over Rush 2112 and Kiss Destroyer the same day.
Yeah.
Both very different albums, but my mind just went boom. It was like that was like in some weird way, it was like an awakening.
Yeah.
Like I just like, holy, what the hell is this? And I was never the same after that. Like, I mean, I went from playing the Osmonds live on my little phonograph player to like getting those two records and just my mind just being so expanded that like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That became my thing.
That was
You
good
know
stuff.
what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
I no longer
Absolutely.
was listening to things that my folks were digging or,
Right.
my mother was pretty hip, but I mean, I had my fill of Elton John and the Creedence Clearwater Revival, and The Who and all that stuff. Loved it, but I needed to find my own thing.
It was my mom. My mom, like I said, was that little hippie chick that just, she was into all that stuff. And my dad was just like, he'd just shake his head and he'd go over and, and he used to go all the time to, there was a jazz club in Pittsburgh, Walt Harper's Attic.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he got to know Walt Harper pretty well. And he was down there all the time. I actually used to sneak me in, and he went down because he loved Nancy Wilson. That was like, he just thought that was just like smooth. He loved her voice. But I used to go to jazz clubs with him when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And I worked in New Orleans a lot. We had an office down there. So I was down and I was talking to, my local guys, and I was going to go over to Bourbon Street. Right. And he said, nah, man, don't do that. Don't do that. That's for tourists. So go to Frenchman Street over here. It's Bourbon. That's our Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
Right. So buddy of mine, Paul West, God bless him. And he took me to a little club called Spotted Cat.
Okay.
Okay. And this place is so cool. It's like, it's just a little hole in a wall. I mean, it's funky. It's like, it's got a little stage in the corner when you go in, and there's usually like a little trio or a combo in there. But I mean, the Neville brothers will show up, just, and cool stuff like that happens, which just like, so, that kind of stuff is really cool. So I love that kind of music. I love that genre. I love jazz, all of that stuff. But then I go back but I like some my grandkids are teaching me how to like some of the stuff that's out there now, they'll say, we'll let you listen to Miles Davis if you listen to this, right?
It's a trade-off.
You'll listen to the Beatles if you listen to this.
It's a trade-off. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm a little stodgy when it comes to that stuff. I dig what I dig, but I just love guitar-driven music. So when I hear things that are electronic-based,
well, the guitar stuff, that's where we came
it's
from.
like, right? It's like, I mean, I'm not, I try not to be closed-minded to new things, but it's kind of hard to deviate from something that you truly love so much.
Right.
Right.
That's a big part of you, man. You can see it. I mean, it's all over you, and it's not just because you have the T-shirt on. That's a big part of your journey.
Boogie Street will always be around.
Yeah, that's very cool stuff. That's awesome, man. Okay, my friend, you are doing the Eric McKenna Project, your podcast. You've been doing it now, as you said, since 2019. And I'll tell you, you're productive because you're at 280 shows or
roughly,
right around there. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of shows. Because I know doing this, we've been doing them weekly, and we're on 21.
James, all I can say is you have no idea. I mean, because I'm still doing all my own editing, and and I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's a sizable.
That's a lot, my man.
It's a sizable commitment.
Absolutely.
For a hobby, it's a sizable commitment.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed about you is you when you take a bite, you take a big bite.
Yeah, there's only one way to live, and that's the only way I know. And it hasn't always served me well, but generally it has.
That's good. That's good. Now I love your show. Love the form. Love Boogie Street Studio. Love the studio because I think it's got a great vibe. And you posted something yesterday, I think, when you said peaceful, chaotic, right? There's always peace and chaos, right?
There can be.
You just got to look for it. You got to know where to look.
Yeah.
You got to know where to look.
The studio is it's something.
How'd that come about? Because it's you, right? It's the studio. Basically, if somebody came in and didn't know anything about you, right, and they looked around your studio, they'd be able to figure you out.
Whoever built this is insane.
There you go.
And they wouldn't be far off.
There you go.
Well, the studio came after the idea of the podcast first.
Okay.
I just I think. So Natalie has 3 and I have 2 in the blended family, beautifully done blended family.
How old are your kids?
My kids are now 19 and 21. Natalie's are, forgive me, they're like the next level, like 22, 24, 27. So it's kind of like a Brady Bunch.
Sure.
Plus one.
Plus one. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
But the point is, they all kind of now set sail. Gwen, my youngest, the youngest of the group, is now just completed her first year at Ohio University. So basically, everybody's
great school. Yeah, cool.
Now, right?
Yeah.
So I guess out of boredom, the last couple of years, I like, what is the next thing for me? And I mean, I wasn't bored in terms of like not having things to do. Intellectually, though,
sure,
I was getting to the point where I started noticing this Joe Rogan character because while I didn't necessarily find him very funny, because he's
hard to miss.
I got a very kind of quirky comedic thing with me. You know, you have to really be really oddly funny to make me laugh. But
Sure.
I realized that he's sitting down with people for hours and hours. And he was first on my radar back the year that I closed Boogie Street down, Paul Stanley, and we kind of did our last thing together. Paul wrote a book, and he was on this Joe Rogan podcast thing.
Okay.
And it was a great interview, but it was like 2 hours long. And then I started diving in because my fertile mind, right? I wanted to learn things. And this guy was sitting down with, you know, crazy people, but it was for extended periods of time. Mm-hmm. And it was at that time, there really wasn't much of a commercial bent to it at all. And it enabled me to ingest good material in a relaxed fashion. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, this goes against everything that we're being told about today's society.
Sure.
That everything, and no one has an attention span. No one's going to buy in for more than like 60 seconds. You got to hit them over the head. Right. You have to be the king of the sound bites. And that just doesn't appeal to me. Well, here Rogan's breaking that mold. And not just him, but Adam Carolla, like other guys around him, but primarily him.
He was the guy that really
got
everybody's attention
in the room. Yeah.
Right.
Well, the idea of a podcast proved to me that the public, it gave me hope that society is yearning for more detailed, more meaningful conversations.
Sure.
Like we have it inside to really relax and ingest things. We're just choosing not to maneuver our lives that way.
Yes.
So I said, I looked around Pittsburgh. I didn't see anyone in 2018. I didn't see anybody really doing anything on the podcasting front that was what I wanted to do, which was very similar to a Rogan format, like in a studio, 2 people, maybe 3 or 4, but 2 people.
Sure.
In a quiet studio and having a conversation, period. Whether it's interview-based, discussion-based, conversational-based. I just wanted everything to be a conversation, so everything's conversational-based, but through that conversation, you weave in a good interview, fact-finding, and that morphed into moving away from the interview thing and really doing it almost purely on a conversational bent. And I figured coming out of the gate, I'd find it. I had a space anyways I was leasing.
Sure.
I'm going to just go crazy and maybe put a couple things on the wall. And then it became a montage to Boogie Street. Like I had all these guitars left over from the Boogie Street years. I shot a lot of photographs then. I used to shoot bands. I have like a lot of interesting stuff.
Right.
And it's a man cave outside of the house.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just became a real comfortable space. And then we went a little overboard with the lights. And then once we started, we added more. And my electrician friend of mine wanted to kill me because we just kept changing and adding and adding. Yeah. But people were digging the vibe. Yeah. And the more people gave me positive affirmation that I was doing something right, the more we just kept doing it. So, and it just kind of, the Boogie Street studio was born. And it was just a perfect place to have this great conversation. I literally built a table from scratch, learned a lot about carpentry. Never want to do that again. But I learned how to make the space exactly where I think it represents me authentically. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it may not be the ultimate place for someone with OCD, but if you can stand to be in there, I think when you start the conversation, that place lends itself to great conversations.
Good. That's excellent. That's excellent.
And I think that helped. And it also was a good visual catch coming out of the gate. I figured, is anybody going to pay attention? And then after about a month, James, excuse the French, I said, what the fuck am I worried about people watching this for? I'm not doing this for anybody else.
That's exactly right.
I'm not doing this for anybody else. I'm not doing it for money. It's all self-funded. I want to see if I can talk to interesting people to increase my quality of life and just share the conversations and make it look cool.
That's what it's all about.
Share it. If people find value, great. If they don't,
that's okay too.
I really don't care.
That's exactly
so
right.
So how we got legs, I don't understand it. Am I grateful? Yeah, I think it's because anything is quote unquote successful, whatever that means. It's exciting.
Absolutely.
So for people to really find value in what we're doing, who doesn't want that, right?
That's exactly right.
So that's my definition of success, is where I can look at, like, I can be happy about doing it. I mean, we're connecting over the fact that the podcast got legs, right? That's how you met me.
That's exactly right.
So it's like if I had the ability to meet interesting people, have conversations with them, and gain something emotional, intellectually, or even social out of it,
right,
then the battle is won.
That's exactly right.
And
it's
that's
a huge
where
victory.
I think so. I think that's the benefit of it. Where I'm slowing down society. This is all day, right? Everybody's like this all day
long,
or like this, or whatever they're doing with it. This is how things used to be. We used to sit at a dinner table and talk to each other. We used to actually sit in a coffee shop. Go to Starbucks now. No one's sitting in there. They're gone.
And that's what led us to doing it this way. Well, two reasons did. First of all, we figured, as you said, we got to get some legs before we think about. We kicked around doing a studio and doing that type of thing, but this is me, right? Because the work I do and the way I'm blessed to do
there's no rules. And that's the beauty of it.
I set my laptop up in a coffee shop like this.
That's the beautiful. And see, this
and
aesthetic.
You have conversations.
This aesthetic is good, and this is. I mean, this is more. Like. There's no right or wrong way with podcasting.
That's exactly right.
There's no
this
rules.
Represents two ways that you can do it.
There's no rules, right? I mean, you have to find an aesthetic and a vibe. I'm not even aesthetic and a vibe. Like I like the vibe of my own space because of the way I'm wired. I'm not. I'm social, but it's usually always on my own terms. I'm not.
Right.
I wasn't.
Right.
I'm just not made to mingle. Like I'm just not a big socially vibrant person. So I created a space that I'm very comfortable in
that's important.
I think encourages me to be able to get other people to have great conversations. Does that make any sense?
Makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
Because
this is where I'm comfortable.
Exactly.
Right. And that's what it's all about.
100%. And I do think that ultimately in the end, if you're happy with what's going on,
right,
that's all that matters. I tell my folks, listen, they'll come in and say, well, what's your viewership? I go, oh. I mean, I have stats and I get them all. I don't believe that they are what they are, especially the downloads. I can't believe we've done that, but I don't care. I truly don't care. Like I'm on the Facebook show, the one Facebook show, this lady calls me and goes, I just looked at that Facebook video and there's like 12,000 views there. And I'm like, well, okay. And I'm like, she goes, well, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't really know. I put it on YouTube. I don't pay attention to it. I put it on Facebook, get it out there. We throw it out there. My point is, I don't know how it happened exactly, but I think we got legs, James, because I didn't care about getting legs.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot
of
sense,
you really, right? I'm not micromanaging anything at all. I'm just doing my.
You're just letting it flow. You're doing your thing, and you're letting it flow in whatever direction it flows. That's okay.
So. Years ago, I realized that when you work with successful people, there's always tells, right? So I had a conversation with Paul Stanley in Pittsburgh, and I'll never forget the date. It was, I think, early December of 2009. And after the concert, he's in street clothes, and we're drinking wine. So, surreal moment. I'm sitting on a couch in this in a hospitality room in the back of the Civic Arena. And it was the last show of the tour, so he wasn't in any really hurry because they weren't flying out that night. He was just going to go back to his hotel room. So he just sat and started BSing. And what I realized from this conversation was that
he wears the makeup all the time, right? He doesn't take that off. I mean, even strictly. I mean,
that's a lot.
Don't ruin it. I'm sorry.
No, but it was like he said to me. He said that because I think I asked him. I said, well, what's the most frustrating moment you ever had? And he goes, I don't. I get cramps from smiling. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Because but he did say to me, he goes, we are the living proof that if you want something bad enough in America, he's only talking about America, if you're willing to get up every day and do it consistently and make these little small improvements and pay attention to what's going on. But if you're a rockhead and get up and do it every day, whether it's your music, whether it's your business, whether it's a brand, whatever, and you just have that determination to believe in that thing you're doing, and you do it and you do it and you do it, and you don't listen to anybody that's giving you negative feedback. You just don't listen to them. Right. No matter how crazy, you don't even have to be talented. You don't have to be really good at anything. As long as you make little changes and you do it every day consistently, you will, in spite of yourself sometimes, be successful. That is the American way. He goes, now, we weren't the greatest band. We weren't the greatest musicians. Our songwriting,
they've always taken a lot of grief over their musical ability, right?
But he said, we bludgeoned our logo and our way onto the American people. and we didn't care about trends. We didn't care. We were what we were.
That's exactly right. And they were true to that.
So
they stayed true to the brand, and they didn't change.
I learned from him that, if I dig something, if I dig something and there's validation in it, I don't give a what anybody thinks.
I hear you. I hear you.
Care.
I'm right there with you.
I don't care if you sit there and give me a list of 50 things that are wrong with my podcast and 50 improvements that you think it would be better and 50 of this. And if there's an improvement idea, I might listen to it.
Right.
But I will never validate you because you're not me. You're not here doing it.
That's right.
You're noise. And I don't mean that cruelly. I'm just saying.
I get what you mean.
To
Absolutely.
get to the goal line and anything, you have to be able to filter out the garbage, right? And stay true to the goal. And here, the beautiful thing about this is I don't have a goal line. I don't know where I want to be next week.
Right.
Like, this is like this journey. This is like almost like a psychedelic trip. It's all kind of working. And I'm surrounded by great people, and I have no idea where I'm going. I'm in a bus with no GPS.
Yeah.
No brakes.
Just going.
I'm just going, right?
Just going.
But I do believe in behind everything, if you do something long enough and consistently enough, you will be a success in spite of your ineptitude sometimes.
Yeah. See, that consistency will cover up a lot of ugly.
But it's a concept that some people just cannot get past. They can't grasp.
It's too easy to quit. It's too easy to quit whenever you bump up against that. It's too easy to walk away. So, okay, that's not working. I'm going to go do something else.
But why do you think we're wired that way? Like, to me, that pisses me off. When I get pissed off, I want to do it more.
Right.
That just makes me want to do things more. When you tell me I can't do something, and I look at it, and it's not it's not going to harm me. I can know that. But you tell me I can't do it, that just makes me want to do something more. Not to rub it in your face, because I really don't care what you think.
Exactly.
But you're obviously bringing you're bringing negativity into my space, and I will push back on that. Since I was a little kid.
Well, that's what we do.
I don't know why I'm wired that way, but that's just how I'm wired.
I think it's our age and where we come from, right? It's this part of the world. It's the era we grew up in, and how we've been wired that way. Maybe don't realize it, but from birth, to be honest, we came up through. I was a few years ahead of you, but not that much. And when you think about what we experienced, think about what life has happened in the world in our lifetime. Right. And I think the kids today, younger people, younger than us, and not even a lot younger, my kids, like I said, my oldest kid is in her early 40s. They're just from you in your late 50s, me in my early 60s, to her in her early 40s, dramatically different in that 20 years.
100%.
Dramatically different.
100%.
And I think young people today, because of everything that we've discussed today, because of the internet, because of media, because of all those things, it's become too easy to quit. And maybe not even quitting, that word has a little bit of a negative slant to it, but even course correction. You can change course too quickly, and that then takes a positive, because change is a very positive thing. But if you do it too quickly and you abandon where you were going, that can become a negative as well.
I also think too that I benefited from the era that I started Boogie Street with, and I started this journey because the distractions in 98 were much less than what someone would start today. If you started a guitar business online today, you'd have 15 different outlets on where to market it, 100 different people trying to give you video advice on how to do your video promotions. I didn't have any of that. So maybe, I benefited from not having all those distractions.
Well, you were able to focus on your mission and what was right for you.
But the internal drive to do something, some people would say ad nauseum if I believed in it. I mean, I am a rockhead. Now, not every idea was fruitful. But the good
they're not all good ideas.
Some of them really yield. But at the first sign of difficulty, I don't give up the ship.
No.
And listen, I don't want a medal for that or an award, because sometimes that rockheadness has cost me relationships. It's cost me other aspects of my life. But in terms of drive, to me, it's not too hard to get up and get out of bed every day and go get it. That was the fun of life for me, right?
Yeah. I mean, think about what a blessing. You get to basics. Think about what a blessing it is to just wake up in the morning. When you think about that, so okay, you're awake, you're in the game. Okay?
100%.
You're in the game, so do something with it. Do something with the opportunity.
Yeah, and that's what I think when you're younger, it's hard to look at it. more esoteric like that. But as you get older, you certainly do.
Sure.
But like now, I got friends, great friends that I grew up with that are at different stages of their life. I mean, in their late 50s, some of them are looking forward to retirement. Some of them are already semi-retired. Some of them that are, that basically go golfing on Saturday, go to the bar a couple times a week, watch some TV, hang out with their friends. That's fine. That's their
okay.
life.
That's okay.
I'm not knocking. There's no right or wrong way to live.
Yep.
But they're in a different place in their life. They're living their life at this age in a more conventional way. I think when you look at what else is out there in the world, I have no interest on living my life in any other way as to outside of what suits me when I wake up.
Yeah.
And that's a freedom that I worked hard to get to, but there's just too much dynamic stuff to try and do and get engaged with it. My age is irrelevant.
Oh, it's a number. Yeah, it's totally irrelevant.
I mean, it's like I don't want to. There you go for that hill gracefully. Who the hell made up that phrase? I'll go over that hill bludgeoning and blundering everything I possibly can. Like it's just come on.
That's right. Yeah.
It's not. Life's too short.
It doesn't do you any good, right? So I mean, it's you playing it safe. What's that old saying? Safe is for sidewalks and swimming pools.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not for living your life.
And I think
there's some risk associated with everything.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's beneficial to try to nudge them to learn that, hey, anything is actually possible. You need to be smart about how you maneuver because you need to work the probabilities, right?
Sure.
But anything is really possible as long as you're willing to pay the price to make it come true. And
we live in a limitless world right now.
Sometimes that price isn't worth it.
Right.
But
it can be too high, there's no doubt.
But yeah, I just don't believe in limiting beliefs because they haven't served me well. And I wish I would have, as a younger person, understood that concept because I didn't get it till middle age.
Right.
But
same way. Same here. Absolutely. And it's frustrating to a certain extent, because when I sit back and I think there were people in my life who were saying these things to me, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I wasn't hearing them. And,
sure.
And it was by choice. It wasn't that I wasn't hearing as much as I was ignoring, because I thought I knew everything, 100%. And then when everything imploded, which was all self-inflicted, you know what I mean? As nobody ever did anything to me, every adversity that I've faced, I reached out and grabbed it and put it in the path.
Of course.
We all, that's what we
100%.
do, But I learned so much from the negativity, from the negative people and the negative experiences that now I'm not afraid of adversity.
100%.
Like you said, I go right through it.
Well, the other thing too, it's like we don't want to ultimately look inward. And I've always run my life the following way. And I did not come up with this. This was kind of like a mantra that was given to me by my father and some uncles of mine, great uncles that, they used to say when you come of age, which means like when you finally get to be 18-ish, when you come of age, at that point, wherever you go in your life and whatever you do in your life, you are exactly where you ultimately want to be.
Right.
You may bitch about it, complain about it. You may woe is me about it, get I didn't get this, I didn't get that. But you are where you are.
You've made a choice, conscious or subconscious.
Because of where you are.
You've made a choice.
And I honestly feel that we as humans either have been conditioned or we want to live our life in a way where we don't want to take ownership of that.
Right.
That outside forces must have caused us not to do the things ultimately we want to do.
Because we can't. Yeah, it can't be our fault.
It can't be us. It's too painful to look at our own frailties and our own ineptitudes.
Listen, it's like when I got divorced, I mean, I pointed the finger at every human being. I probably blamed you, and I didn't even know you. I mean, I blamed everybody.
I felt it.
Then it was like, all of a sudden, it just hit me one day. Holy shit, that's my fault. I mean, maybe there was a little bit of play for my ex, but yeah, it's pretty much my fault, right?
Yeah,
and it's like
an ownership thing.
That realization but you know what? But once I took that ownership, once I accepted that and took ownership of it, then I was able to move forward finally.
100%.
And because I've been dragging it along with me and, kids and everything when you have that part of a divorce, so, but just like that acceptance and
but what's great? What's great about that? See, for me, is like when you finally accept the fact that you are where you are because that's where you want to be.
Right.
When I quit playing bullshit games with myself, when I quit believing my own bullshit, right? When I finally got to that point, like, whoa, I mean, it's not all. It's a little painful, But ultimately, it gives you that opportunity to finally start living a purely authentic way.
Yes.
You know, oh, I'm my authentic self. And I would always say, okay, are you?
Are you really?
Are you really?
Right.
Because once I know I wasn't, but once I really stopped believing my own bullshit, you know, and believing the lies I told myself or the illusions I would buy into, that I was this and I was doing this. And I remember there were moments in the guitar business where the success and money was real because I could look at it in the bank account.
Sure. Oh yeah, it's
it
there.
wasn't that the money was an illusion, but my level of importance and my level of influence and my level of success in terms of my peers, you know, I bought in all that shit. And life has a way of humbling you.
Oh yeah.
You know, but I think
always will.
Ultimately though, when you quit believing that crap and you start taking a hard look at yourself, you then can be comfortable. And then once I became comfortable with who the hell I really am, then I was like, you know what? It's really easy to be authentic.
Sure
if you're comfortable in your own skin and you get there and you can honestly say to yourself, look in the mirror, I like that guy.
Right.
I like that guy.
And all of a sudden, when you can do that, then all of a sudden you start, well, I guess that's not, he's not what I thought he was. That guy's not that bad, or she's not that, you know, because it helps you. Once you see, look in the mirror and you like who you are, then all of a sudden you start to see everybody else and everything else differently.
That you absolutely do. And it does give you a new and very keen eye for evaluation.
Yes, absolutely. I went through that same process, and it was, and you're right, it was painful. I mean, it was painful
doubt,
because
man.
You really got to I got some warts. I can't, I got to stop
We
covering
all
those up,
do, man.
You know, yeah, absolutely.
We all do. But I just, as a middle-aged person, and I'm maybe late middle-aged. I don't know how that works, but I'm not big on labels.
But you're gonna live to be 100, right, my man?
I'm pushing 110. So
that's all right.
I want 110. But I just want to, you know, I guess to wrap it up, I just really want to get my money's worth. My grandmother lived to be 98, and she used to say, and she was a very funny story. Was she was a very astute woman, you know, high in academia, Duquesne University, School of Nursing. She was lived an amazing life. Very well-to-do. Okay? Not like me, but and I used to drive her nuts because I was like, you know, hip and slang and cool and hip and vibe and all that bullshit. Yeah. And she was like, I didn't speak the proper King's English, right? So, but she did say to me one time, she goes, she was in her like late 80s or something. And she goes, when you look, I said, Grandma, you look back on your life, like, you know, you got to do all the things you wanted to do, you know? And like, this is like amazing. Look at this things you've done. You should write a book. And she said, my boy, I got my money's worth.
Nice.
And I was like, whoa,
nice.
Grandma.
That's
huge.
I
would never expect that come out of her mouth.
Yeah,
right?
Right.
She said, my boy, I got my money's worth. And I'm still getting it. And I was like, damn. So I guess, you know, I think about
life
that.
Right there.
I'm going to get my money's worth out of it. I'm going to squeeze every drop out of these last years I have, whether it's one day or it's 40 more years. I don't know.
Yeah,
or 50 more years.
It doesn't matter. You're going to do. You're going to. If you're going to.
But
have
I'm going to squeeze every drop of that out. I'm going to try to do the most dynamic, most vibrant, most cool stuff that I can. That I can do.
That's the thing, right there.
That I can do.
Right.
You know.
Right. Well, listen, man. Hey, listen. Thank you so much.
Dude,
I appreciate you coming and joining us.
I had a blast, James.
You know, we got Nick. Looks like he's getting tired, so I think it's probably we need to wrap up.
Gosh knows what he's doing over there.
He's Nick's my man. And listen, this young man is exceptional, and I mess with him a lot, you know, because I can. I mean, look at him. It's easy, you know. It's like it's not even a challenge, but
it's a good-looking young man. He obviously loves what he does. And talking about marrying your passion with your vocation, you're doing it at a young age, man. I didn't start that bullshit. I was 37.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you learn that skill when you're young.
What were you? I started fooling around with this, what, 13?
That's awesome. You got a card? All right, give me a card when I speak.
All right, well, take care of it. Listen, thanks, brother.
All right,
Appreciate
man.
it, man.
Good to see you, buddy.
Yep, you too.